Tell us a little bit about other groups that you discovered in the process. I know there was White Lightning in New York, which came out of a drug rehab program called Spirit of Logos, and they were affiliated with Rising Up Angry. There was also a group on the West Coast that came out of the Young Patriots, and you may have found other things too. You're the guy who wrote the book. Tell me what's going to be in it.
Well, White Lightning's a particularly inspiring group. They were bunch of guys that were in a recovery program, and they ended up rebelling against the authoritarian nature of that recovery program and the fact that some of the heads of that program were getting into some very weird cultist-like Synanon activities, and then they ended up teaming up with the New York version of the Young Lords. Some of their members were around for the legendary takeover of Lincoln Hospital. They tried to apply the Black Power mandated division of labor of organizing your own. There's some under duress, and really organize in white working class communities. They were one of the cornerstones of the United Parents Who Care coalition that fought against the original Rockefeller laws. And Gil Fagiani, one of my heroes, published papers talking about the comparisons between Bobby Seale's case at the time and Sacco and Vanzetti. Gil really believes, and I actually agree, that one of the best ways to undermine racism is just to talk about positive acts of resistance within white ethnic communities and show people really that, by extension, that this assimilation thing is kind of a crock, and that we have things to celebrate. And so, it's a positive example of what solidarity could look like, not a guilt-based one.
You bring up a good point, because one of the things as white people working with poor and working white people, we were always looking for stories that would inspire. And I remember writing a little story about Sacco and Vanzetti that we ran in Rising Up Angry. I remember also talking about the Molly Maguires, who were organizing in, I think, the coal fields up there in Pennsylvania. Certainly we would try to make the connection to the Irish struggle, and anywhere that, and certainly there was a lot of tradition in the labor movement that we could bring these stories to people. And a lot of people could relate to that. Is Gil still around? Is he doing poetry? What's he up to these days?
Gil's a fantastic poet. He has a book out called Rooks, which is about his time in military college. He's also a contributor to a fantastic new anthology called Avanti Popolo, Italian-American Writers Sail Beyond Columbus. So he's still doing the
And what's
the
his
work.
last name now?
Fagiani.
Fagiani. I could never quite get that down. One of the reasons that you're in town, James Tracy, I always want to call you Jim. James, either way is okay, is that these folks at AREA, which stands for Art, Research, Education, Activism, and it's kind of an intellectual geographers, paper, geography in the broadest sense, or, who was there, what kind of people. They have this new issue that just came out. It's their number 7, and it has not only an interview that an Ian Haig did with me about Rising Up Angry, but it has an excerpt from your book, Uptown's Joint Community Union, 64 to 66. Why don't you tell us a little bit about why they brought you in and what's going on today that will have you speaking at it, so that all the people who want to put on their snowshoes and make it down to, believe it's at Hull House on Halsted, down by the University of Illinois, they could actually see a film by Bernadine Mellis, and they could hear you talk, and they could meet a lot of people. Fill us in.
Well, this number 7 issue is called Politics of Inheritance and then Inheritance of Politics, and it's exactly what we've been talking about creating an intergenerational dialogue amongst leftists and organizers and activists, so we don't have to repeat the wheel. This particular issue is just fantastic. It really unearths a lot of hidden histories of Chicago, things that one might not even think people would be able to find. It's really great. The event starts at 2 o'clock at the Jane Addams Hull House Museum. It'll go on from 2 to 4, and there'll be art exhibits, projections, movies, lectures, and a chance for people to meet and conspire.
James Tracy, you've been talking about intergenerational dialogue, and it's a theme in the promotion that you've sent out for this event, and I think it's a theme in your ongoing work. So it's a nice way to say, I guess, we talk to the younger people and they talk to us, and we try to get down with information and see how we can complement each other. Why don't you tell us about your experience with that and what you've been doing not only here in Chicago today, but in other places and venues?
Well, I've always been very, very, very honored and blessed to have elders teach me how to organize. Whether it was Malik Rahim, whose idea of teaching me how to do door-to-door knocking was embedding me in the projects during a anti-Hope 6 campaign in San Francisco. So I would just learn how to talk with folks, to Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz, Sharon Martinez. People like that who really just took me under their wing and said, well, here's a few things we learned, and that means that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every 10 years of activism. And now that I'm almost middle-aged, I hope to be passing some of those on.
How old are you?
I'm 38.
You're middle-aged. You're getting up there.
Well, but there's generations of organizers and activists that have been recently politicized by the war on terror, or put into motion by the Obama campaign. I think that even before Obama, it's been fairly obvious that although a lot of the basic power relations in the United States remain the same, the way that people understand race, class, and gender are really shifting, which changes the terrain for organizers today. So in order to understand how things have changed, we have to understand the past projects to undermine these injustices and structures in the past.
The way people understand race, gender, etc., tell us how you think that has changed the organizing playing field. Because it certainly seems to have made a big difference in how the presidential election came down. And what's out there? What are you finding when you talk to people?
Well, I think that a lot of people have responded to the Obama phenomenon very in a positive way, of course wanting to be beyond race and beyond racism, but because there hasn't been a mass movement like the one that you were part of, that people think that there's a shortcut that we can put a black face and a high face, and then all of a sudden we're not going to have to do the hard works in our communities and our workplaces to complement this amazing opening around dialogue that is actually come into play. One example is that of course Rising Up Angry and Joint Community Union and the Panthers had to deal with police brutality at the time. Now many major metropolitan cities have the same police brutality problems, but there's blacks and Puerto Ricans and Chinese cops where there were very few back in the time. So the way that one would organize around police brutality issues today would have to be a lot more nuanced than in the 60s or 70s, just because of that, because that's one of the few areas that has really been started to become very integrated, at least in major cities.
I think we're probably still going to have to deal with race big time in this country. I mean, it's like, while in a lot of ways we have some real opportunities, not only with Obama, but also with the economic crisis that faces us. It really, it's going to force a lot of white people and others to see how they're really in the same bed together, so to speak, or in the same playing field, that the economic forces that have created some pretty negative conditions and are still at work I like to think would be an opportunity for us to look to Obama for leadership as the guy to help us through this, but we have a lot of working together to do to move forward.